Anthropology series. So we were studying epidemiological anthropology, and Sir has very nicely in very brief he had tried to explain what epidemiological anthropology is all about. So if I have to give you a brief recap of what he taught basically, so we were talking that when we are studying about humans, as we know that anthropology is all about studying humans in terms of time and space. So when we were talking about humans, we have studied about the evolution of man, right? We are studying about evolution in terms of biological evolution, as well as we were talking about the cultural or socio-cultural evolution also, right? So when we talk about biological evolution, and when we talk about biology of a human, we have studied about the genetic aspect of man, right? How man evolved, right? And now, because anthropology is a study of time and space of humans, so we have to study about the kind of diseases that impact human beings. What is the distribution of those diseases? What is the etiology of those diseases? Where these diseases are found? What is the pattern, if there is any pattern? What is the kind of pattern that is found? For example, हम बोलते हैं, we say that sickle cell anemia is present in populations that are near to the equator, because maybe वहाँ पे it has a, not maybe, but it has a selective advantage, right? Or what we call as the heterozygote advantage, right? So what is this? What is sickle cell? It's a disease. Its distribution is near the equator. Why is it distributed there? Is because of the selective advantage. So if I have to say what is epidemiology, I would say epidemiology is the study, distribution, and determination of what determines a disease, right? So determination of diseases and injuries in a human population. So he had talked very beautifully about the cogwheel model, and what is a cogwheel model, what are the interactions that happen between a host, environment, and in the case of viruses or bacterias or other aspects, right? So he had very beautifully explained the whole concept of what epidemiological anthropology is talking about. So now we'll delve deep, because we have talked about that we are precisely going to study about the different kind of diseases, their pattern, where are they distributed, how, when, why, where, all about the diseases, right? So if we go about the scope of epidemiological anthropology, we'll say it studies infectious diseases, non-infectious diseases, ecology of malnutrition, nutritional stress in modern societies, deficiency of diseases, and whatnot. Now, if you go back and try to evaluate what Sir was actually saying, he was saying that when we started, or when the evolution of what kind of diseases are faced by the human population, he talked about that there was a gene therapy, gene theory, right? Which meant that we were taking a very narrow idea of what a disease can be. Then as the study grew, we understood that okay, maybe environment plays a very important role in determination of a disease. Then we got to know, as we further developed our studies regarding genetics, how genetics plays a part in determination of disease. So disease is not only a very narrow term, it is a very big term, and it is because of what he was telling us about the spider, the web of diseases, which looks like a spider web, right? So a web of diseases was a, you can say, interaction between the known unknown factors. And what is unknown factors? Because अभी भी ऐसा हो सकता है, it is a possibility that we don't know what are some of the reasons that are causing diseases. So what is scope? May everything will come. So environment will come, environment related stresses will come, everything would come, right? So this is, I think, just say in the last chapter we were talking about how high altitude causes miscarriages among pregnant women. So what is this? This is the environment that is playing a part. How Minamata Bay disease is because in that area in Japan, how the mercury accumulation in the fishes caused Minamata Bay disease. So what is this? This is the environment that is playing a part. So all of this is a part of scope of epidemiological anthropology. So now today we are going to start about infectious diseases. I'm sorry, I think यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा it's missed, so I'll just write it, and the font size is little bit smaller. I'll take care of it from the next time. I'll just read it out so you can just listen to it. So man has been able to control his nearby environment, or at least mitigate the worst effects by various adaptive mechanisms. So अभी तक हम we have talked how man has successfully reproduced basically by adapting. That adaptation can be biological, that adaptation can be evolutionary, and that adaptation can be socio-cultural also, right? So on the other hand, when man has adapted, the struggle against unalterable opponents has remained, that is, be it the physical or the climatic factors. That means we have largely tried to manipulate the environment, but there are certain things which are even today very beyond our control. For example, COVID-19 pandemic, right? Even though we had the technology, but when suddenly some new virus comes up, now how to control it? And today, with so much of globalization, anywhere anything happens, it has a larger bearing on the humanity. So what is this? This is the unalterable opponent, right? So COVID-19 has won against the humanity and all its manipulations. So biological environment, which is in itself capable of adaptive responses, we sometimes we are not able to manipulate that. Okay? So eradication of, in the context of eradication of infectious diseases, appropriate steps must be adopted to ensure the adaptation of individuals. Okay na? So obviously if we have to live and successfully reproduce, we need to overpower these infectious diseases. So when we talk about infectious diseases, there are two components which play a very important role. That is the physical environment and the, you can say, the biotic component or the biotic environment, right? So these are the two things. So what is a physical environment? You can say it is a immediate source of injury and ill health. Okay? There is consequently, you can say, a clear geographical distribution of pathology manifested. Like for example, I told you that in high altitude regions, what is happening? There is more chances of having miscarriages among pregnant women, because there is that problem of how to there is a dearth of oxygen there, right? So partial pressure of oxygen is low, so thereby it is a very, you can say, the physical component of the environment is directly related to the kind of disease that is there, right? So for example, एक heat stroke हमें desert में मिलेगा mostly, because obviously the temperature of a desert is higher, so thereby we can have that kind of a heat stroke there. They are more susceptible to maybe a person being in the Arctic. Usko to thoda bhi, if a person living in the Arctic gets a little bit of sun also, even that is 20 degrees Celsius, it will be like heaven for him. He will never have a heat stroke. But heat stroke in desert is something which is more likely to happen, right? So that is the physical environment. Then comes a biotic component of the environment, which is the viruses, the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoans. So what is COVID-19? It's a virus. So what is that? It's a biotic component of an infectious disease, right? So This in addition to other nutritional disorders like improper utilization of food sources like the animal or vegetable minerals and proteins. They can also add to your vulnerability to the virus or the disease itself. For example, in the COVID-19, we were how we were being very cautious that we were thinking कि we should have kahada or something like that, our own herbs, right? We were talking about that. Why? Because to boost the immunity, to provide the body with the necessary minerals, because we know that nutrition has a lot of bearing on our immunity. Because अगर हम अच्छा nutrition लेंगे, then we are more likely to save ourselves from the kind of diseases, and many diseases are caused by the dearth of nutrition itself. So nutrition plays a big role. So apart from that, there are environmentally produced stresses. जैसे हमने अभी I told you that obviously if we are not taking the right kind of food, that is also external environment. It's a part of an external environment. If we are not wearing the appropriate amount of clothes in a very winter, in chilled winters, what will happen? We are going to fall ill. So what is this? This is all part of the environment. Similarly, shelter has a role to play. Our occupation has a role to play, right? For example, हम क्या बात करते हैं? This is the web of causation that I was talking about. Okay, so what I was saying is that how family pattern will play a role. How family pattern can play a role. I'll tell you. So basically, if you talk about, we have our social habits, right? And for example, there are congested houses or congested colonies, right? So there are more chances that infectious diseases will spread. So जब COVID-19 हुआ था तो we saw that धारावी में there was a lot of tension कि धारावी में if it spreads it will quickly go to the most parts of the Mumbai city, right? Because वहाँ पे there are so many people, so family pattern या population density, you can say anything, population density also of today urban cities की लगा लो, it is more. So when an infectious disease spreads, it quickly spreads because the population to area ratio is very high. Then social habits, for example, if we do open defecation, ठीक है, open defecation से क्या होगा? There'll be vectors that'll be born because of that unclean environment, right? Open defecation. So you can write you can write social habits. How social habits has a role to play in infectious diseases. Because जैसे हमने एक example ले ली open defecation की, that's one. Then use of dustbins. If we don't use dustbins and throw the garbage outside, again there is chance. If there are open landfills, so vector-borne diseases, right? Cholera, malaria can increase, right? So these are certain diseases that can happen due to social habits also. Then migration can be a cause. How migration can be a cause? Because if we talk about जैसे there's an outbreak of infectious disease, like we saw the COVID-19 itself. So how it spread from China to the world? So what is that? That happened because of the migration, because people in a globalized world, they migrate, right? So because of that, the infectious diseases can spread, right? So then occupation can be one thing. For example, farmers, they work in the fields. So whatever field related, whatever viruses and bacteria are there in the soil get exposed, and the farmers are in turn susceptible to carry these diseases to other people, and through them the infectious diseases can spread. So I hope there is no doubt about this, and I am pretty clear on what I am trying to say. So I hope guys till here you have understood, and we'll talk about the let's just finish this only. So I think infectious diseases कैसे हो सकते हैं, what are infectious diseases, you understand, which spread very quickly, right? And caused by infectious diseases may, you can just remember that they are spread from person to person, right? And spread very quickly. That is why they are called infectious diseases, which for example, if you have certain kind of a problem, it might spread to the other person. ठीक है ना? So how can you protect yourself? You can protect yourself from isolating yourself, from abstaining from meeting somebody, washing your hands all the time, है ना? These are certain things. Keeping yourself clean, uh, keeping your surroundings clean. So these are the ways that you can protect yourself. So if we talk about what, let's summarize. Infectious disease, we talked about it. They are increasing, or they are there because there is a competitive interaction between man and the environment, because man is taking everything from the environment, right? And there's a competition between the two. So that struggle, sometimes we win against that struggle and sometimes we lose. So when we lose, that is when we fall ill. So in the starting, our body has an immediate response towards the infectious disease, which is caused by any pathogen like a virus or a fungi or a protozoa, or virus, fungi, protozoa, bacteria, anything. So what happens is, if it enters your body will try to fight, because of the immunity of your body, which is mediated by T cells and other cells. Then you have the white blood cells. All these try to fight against this virus vagera, right? And in that case, you get a flu or fever, right? You get a rash. All these things are signs that your body is trying to or you have inflammation, pain. All these are things that your body is fighting against the virus. But when it is out of control, it will increase. So your inflammation, your flu, your fever, rash will go out of hand, right? And that is when our body tries to, we take some outside intervention. It could be an antibiotic, right? In that case. And then sometimes what happens is, this is the immediate response of your body. Sometimes this is a long term effect also. So long term effect kya hoga? For example, if I'll tell you, you know that sickle cell anemia, though is a it's not a, first of all, can't say that it is a infectious disease, right? So for example, हम कुछ भी example लेते हैं. For example, if I talk about COVID, for suppose, ठीक है? COVID का क्या है? For example, let us suppose that it persists. Now clearly we can see that 2-3 years in COVID times, we have seen how many variants of COVID has come, and it is successfully changing from one variant to the other to the other. And obviously we have got a vaccine against it, but even till now, if the vaccine was so, you can say, successful in eradicating the COVID itself, तो हमें the variants would not have come. So it has come because of the fact that it is also changing its nature, and it is also successfully reproducing. So now it is getting fixed in the population, right? So maybe it has not become that fatal now, because we are also working towards a vaccine, but it has also tried to fix itself in the population. So it is much like the other, you can say, like malaria is that. So our body, even though our body is not like, we can't stand malaria, right, without a medical intervention, but क्या है, उसने तो अपने आप को, it has, malaria has fixed itself in the population. So there can be long term infectious diseases also, which then remain in the population. So now we have talked about what is infectious diseases, how physical and biotic component has a role to play. Then infectious diseases, what can cause? So family patterns can cause, ठीक है ना? Similarly, population density can cause, social habits can cause infectious diseases, our occupation can cause, right? Housing pattern can cause, right? So all of these things that can cause infectious diseases. So what is the biological response to it? If I have to talk about biological response, we would say that there are twofold response जो हमने बात कर लिया. That is the immediate response. I'm just summing it up. You please listen to it. Immediate response, which is a physiological process to counteract the effect of a organism. So our body has pain, fever, inflammation, all of that. ठीक है? If the disease is widespread or severe in nature, ठीक है ना, then there is a selective agent also that works. ठीक है ना, तो इसमें हमने बात कर लिया कि how it fix itself in the population and how, you know, that sometimes there is a selective advantage also. For example, if a person is having a malaria, for example, somebody is having a sickle cell anemia, he'll be, protected from the malarial disease. So how another kind of a disease can help you fight against a infectious disease, right? So all this was about infectious disease. Nobody is going to ask us in a lot of detail, so I have kept it very crisp and short. I hope you have understood. There's no doubt. And tomorrow we'll do about the non-infectious disease or ecology of malnutrition and all of that. So I hope you guys liked the lecture. If you did, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.